Thanks everyone for joining us. We're here with Krishna Das. My name's Eric Nowakowski. This is Jessica Rary, and there's so much I could just go on and on about all the work that Krishna and the amount of service that he's given us. I don't know what else to say really. I know I did feel a little bit inspired to bring up to introduce you as the chant master of American yoga / an American burger with Indian ketchup.
I love that. Yeah, that's great.
So, how are you?
Yeah, I was singing in Denmark. I was going to sing in Denmark, and one of my friends who was organizing ran into an old friend of hers as walking down the street. This guy had spent half his life in the jungle in India. He had the long dreads, and he was ashes. He was walking around with a dhoti in Copenhagen, and she said, Krishna Das is coming he's going to sing. Are you tonight? You going to come? And he said, Krishna Das? He's just an American burger with Indian ketchup. I thought, oh, wow. You can't make shit like that up. It's so great. American burger with Indian ketchup. Well, that's pretty much what it is, isn't it? The burger part was born here. The ketchup we got in India.
Yeah, and it's wonderful to speak. It speaks to like your outlook on it too. That could be taken in different ways. And it seems like
Well, he didn't mean it as a compliment. I can tell you that.
Yeah, but it's flipped around, and now it's something that we can all smile and laugh about in a way.
I thought it was great. Yeah, I mean, one time I was reverencing and respecting this man named Dada Mukherjee, who was one of Maharaji's great devotees, and it made him a little uncomfortable. So he stopped one day and he said, Krishna Das, he said, maybe I'm a step or two ahead of you. Maybe you're a step or two ahead of somebody else. He said, but we're all on this side, on the shore. Only they've gone beyond, the great ones. We're all over here. What's the difference? It was a beautiful thing. Beautiful. Yeah. Really.
That ties in, I think, to that we look like waves, but we're all part of the same ocean.
Yeah, that's a very, very, very deep statement, really. We all think we are who we think we are, which is like a wave thinking, I'm a wave, I'm always a wave. I'll be a wave forever. This is me. This is my waveness, But really, what is a wave? It's made of nothing but ocean. It's simply a temporary concept. And that's what me is, a temporary concept created by circumstances, just like a wave is created by wind and movement in the ocean, right? So the wave, all of a sudden think, I'm a wave. This is great. But there's nothing but ocean in the wave. It's just a temporary delusion of separateness. And really, even when you think you're a wave, you're not separate from the ocean at all in any way. So this is the place that my guru lives. And this is what he transmitted to us and shined on us, just like the sun shines on everything. He shined this one spaceness of it all that we're all in, and that's how he treated people, and that's the kind of love that we're all looking for. That unconditional 24/7, 365 kind of love. And as far as what we were talking about before, the way people see me, that's their problem. What can I say? I'm just hanging out, doing the best I can, and it doesn't bother me because of his grace. He saved me from that. When I started, am I talking too much?
No, I don't think so.
Well, yeah. So he saved me, when I first started singing with people in 1994. I very quickly I could see what was happening. I could see that people were being drawn to me. There was a lot of energy coming to me, all kinds of things, And you see, I had started singing to save myself. I mean, I was into the water like this, and I was going down, and I had this epiphany in my room in New York at the time that if I didn't sing with people, I would never be able to clean out the dark shadows in my own heart. And I understood that this was the only thing that was causing me suffering. So I finally got with the program. It took a little while, but and then when it started, people were coming, more people were coming, but I saw that I couldn't do this the right way. I was a hungry guy, and I was going to gobble up everything that came to me. That's what hungry people do. They have to eat, right? And this is what I was going to do. And I was going to, in that self-centered, selfish way, I was going to hurt myself, and I was going to hurt other people. And more than that, I sang to reconnect with my guru, who I felt that I had let go of his hand, and I needed to find that hand again. So, and I saw I wasn't capable of doing that. So I quit, and I went to India. Funny, I arrived in India on the spring solstice in 1995, and I left on the summer solstice.
Wow.
And it was completely unplanned,
Yeah.
So, and every day I said to him, "You got to fix this." Not my guru. He's only dead for 14, 15 years at that point, or 11, 12 years. I said, "You have to fix this. This is your problem. I can't do anything about this. This is your problem. I'm singing to people in your name. This is your problem. You have to fix it. I'm not singing. Good night." I wake up in the morning, nothing. Nothing. I didn't even know what it would look like if it did happen. You know what I'm saying? I just knew something had to change in me. And I was incapable of doing that because I was the problem,
Yeah.
So it was a really dark time for me. Every day went deeper and deeper into despair, because this was the only thing that I could do that could save my ass. And I was being prevented from doing it by my own stuff. There was nobody to blame it on. I couldn't do this the way I was built at that time.
That's so powerful. That we actually, as a group, we watched One Track Heart, our MLGE team, Music Lovers Guide for Enlightenment, and it was so moving. And that particular part of your life that you share is so moving, because you're in a state of, you recognize that there's a problem and you're completely surrendered as to, I can't fix this. I can't fix it. And the way it resolved is so miraculous. It was incredible.
Yeah, it's funny you mentioned surrender, because every day for 3 months, essentially, I would wake up and I'd see nothing had changed. And I was like, "You have to fix this. What's the deal? This is your problem. Fix it or I don't sing. I'm telling you, this is it." And it was just getting worse and worse. And so many intense things were happening. And so on the 15th of June every year, there's a bandara, a big celebration of feeding. People are fed at the temple in the mountains, which is the anniversary of the opening of the Hanuman temple in there. So I was gonna leave in May. I was getting ready to leave, and I went to see Siddhima, who was Maharaji's great devotee. And I said, Ma, I'm leaving. And she said, no, you have to stay until the 15th of June. And he said, you have to see Maharaji's big form. And I'm thinking, what? What's she talking about? Maharaji's big form? What's that? So I made a few phone calls and nobody wanted me. Nobody was looking for me. So I came back the next day and said, yeah, okay, I can stay. So the Bandara was on the 15th. Now, it had been great. I was staying in the temple for about 3 weeks at that point. Really beautiful. And singing kirtan every day with the kirtan wallas all day long. Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna. It was fantastic. But still, even though I was kind of feeling okay, I knew that nothing had changed inside of me. It hadn't happened. And I was just so desperate. Every night I'd go out into the back of the temple. In the old days when I lived there was one light bulb in the middle of the courtyard in the front of the temple. That was it. One little bare light bulb, Now there was lights everywhere. The whole valley was lit up with electricity and everything. And in the old days, you could see the sky, and you could hear the shooting stars coming in. Like, it was amazing. Wow. These days, it's so busy. But I used to find a little corner where there was shadows and dark at night. And I would look up at the sky and I said, what's the deal? You haven't done anything yet. I'm telling you, I'm not going to sing until you fix this. Good night. Every day. Right. And finally, the night before the Bandara, I went out there and I said, I'm getting ready to leave in a couple of minutes. I mean, in a day or two. I don't understand why you haven't done anything. You can do this if you want to. I don't understand why you don't want to do it. And I said, well, look, I can't make you do it. If you're not going to do it, you're not going to do it. All right, I'll go back. I'll sing. How bad could it be? Good night. And it turned out, in retrospect, that was the moment that I surrendered. Surrender happened. In other words, I recognized this is the way it is. He could do anything. Maharaji, he could do anything for anyone at any time, anywhere. He is boundless. He is in the past, the present, and the future. He knows everything. He could do any, and he wasn't doing it. So I could only assume that for whatever reason, that's the way it was going to be. So I said, all right, I'll go back. I'll sing. But so it was the next day, of course, that everything changed. Everything changed. We just totally changed everything. And that's why I came back and was able to sing.
Yeah,
wow.
Speaks to your willingness, I think.
I see that I agree. I'm willing, but you understand, what else am I going to do? Pump gas. That's my two options. And this is what I have to do to save myself. I can't. It's not a question of, yes, I want to do it. Yes, I'm willing to do it. But you understand, I must do it. I have to do it. It's not if I don't do it, I don't do it. And then I'm allowing my karmic predicament and the tendencies of my mind and emotions to just keep me submerged in bullshit all the time. And I'm not doing anything to remedy that situation, to bring myself into that presence of love that I want to be in all the time. So when people say you're humble, I say, well, you don't know me. I know me. So it's not humility, it's honesty.
Right. Yeah. So, and you do, as well as the kirtans, you started doing a lot of extending, like Chayan chats we saw on your website. And what are what are the kinds of things that you were inspired to extend besides kirtan? Like, if there is anything that really moves you.
You know, I wrote a couple of books. One is about the Hanuman Chalisa, and one is called Chants of a Lifetime, which is autobiographical. And the reason I wrote them is because as I was singing more and more people, I would see things online, or I'd get emails from people. And I recognized people don't understand what this is. They don't know how to use this practice. They don't know what this is. They got all kinds of weird ideas about it. And I ought to try to just share what I know. The little bit that I know, I should try to share. So that's where the workshop things and the chai and chat things came out of, just to try to help bring a little bit more awareness as to what it's about. You know, I mean, you know what they say, even a tiny little candle in the dark makes a big difference.
Yeah.
I just thought, let me, because it's such a great practice, chanting, and it's so powerful, and it is doing so much for me every day.
Yeah.
And I know people like to do it, so I just wanted to help them do it in what I consider is the best way that will allow them to, you know, find something real in life. You know?
And
do you see so through that process, like it feels like it was very chanting focused, and then it's opened more into teaching? Like, do you see that as an evolution that's continuing, or like I feel like the hanging in the heart space, the things that you're doing there, like there's just a lot of space that you're allowing for that, and the teachings, and they complement each other so well, you know, going back and forth, and also taking so many questions too, you know, like that's just wonderful.
I love that. I mean, I really enjoy that. For the most part, I enjoy it very much. I just feel that I don't know. I enjoy it. I mean, I learned so much in interacting with people that it helps me so much to focus more on what, you know, be more aware and more focused and more open and all that stuff. I really I enjoy it. So that's why I do it. You know, I've been doing it for a long time. We've been doing workshops. They call workshops because I don't know what else to call it. Hanging out together, you know, in that space, that heart space. But especially in this pandemic times, and it brings the stuff up to the surface really intensely. So it's even more. I'm doing as much as I feel like I can, really, you know, to just be there with people.
And one of the strong messages that comes through is that everybody is doing the best they can. I love that. I mean, I'm right with I'm with you there. You know,
that's actually a phrase from an incredible woman named Sylvia Bornstein, who's a Vipassana teacher, meditator. And she said she came up with that idea. You know, we're all doing the best we can. Always, we're doing the best we can. All of us, all the time. That's what we're doing.
Right.
We're doing the best we can. You know, we may have ideas about that.
Yeah.
But still, we're simply doing the best we can.
Right. A running commentary.
Yeah.
And I have a question about, do you when you're doing kirtans and you're connecting with your, what is your experience of it, basically, I would ask. And is it, are you improvising, or is it a set kind of, is it just coming from your heart in the moment as you go? And I don't
I'm
know.
improvising from my heart.
Yes. Okay. That's what I thought.
But you know, as far as what we sing in a chanting session, you know, it kind of revolves over time. But
Mm.
I'll do the same chants, you know, for months and months and months, with people. I don't really, whatever I feel comes through to sing is what I sing. Basically, I don't plan in advance, but there's a pool of chants that we have that we do, and
Yeah.
sometimes we haven't done one for so many years that the bass player goes like, and I'll look over him and I'll laugh, and like I did it on purpose, you know.
Right.
But other than that, you know, it's yeah. So it's, you know, everybody has their own way of sharing this practice. This group shares it this way. This one shares it this way. Everybody has their own way of thinking about it. But it comes down to the repetition of the name. And it comes down to paying attention to the sound of the name, of the mantra, of the name, the names of God. And in order to do that, one must pay attention. And then you find yourself thinking about things, you come back. You might notice you've been singing out loud with 1,000 people, and for the last 20 minutes, you've been thinking about what you're going to do next week, you know. But you've been singing, but you haven't been paying attention. So then you come back. You can always let go and come back. That's the thing. That's the training. This is mind training, essentially. And you can always let go and come back until the time, right?
Yeah.
But you can't make that happen. You just have to keep letting go. And then as you begin to sit more deeply in the sound, and you know, it's internal, it's external, it's in your mind, it's in your mouth, it's coming out, it's in your breath, you're all doing all that. The more deeply you sit in it, you know, it opens up. It doesn't get smaller, it gets deeper and wider, and many things happen from the inside. But you must pay attention. You know, it takes time for us to settle in ourselves and get comfortable just being here. It's very difficult, you know, very difficult for us to do that, because I don't know about you, I grew up on Long Island. I knew nobody was doing nothing, you know. And certainly Detroit's the same situation. I'm not so sure about California, but
Well,
so.
Well, I think it's a different time, a different era in a way, as far as that goes, to some degree. But I think you might be surprised if you heard my background, how we're very similar in like what's motivated us to I don't know, as far as like awakening type experiences, you know, and how we got there in a way, or you know, like with you, peyote experience, and you know, leading you to Ram Dass and all of that. Yeah, I think that there's something there. I did want to ask when you're you know, speaking of like what you're feeling when you're, you know, I've heard you speak about that you're singing to Maharaji when you're singing, like, and so do you feel that there's ever that with that point where it opens up to more, you know, like a greater experience, for lack of a better word? Do you feel that there's like a pivot to where instead of singing to Maharaji, like Maharaji is singing through you, or you know, insert symbol here for that ultimate being?
Well, first of all, when I say I sing to Maharaji, he's obviously not sitting there physically, right? So it's not that I'm actually singing. I'm not singing to the guy who I used to know in the body necessarily. I'm singing to who that guy really is, which is loving presence, loving awareness right now, right here. So, and I'm not actually singing to that either. I'm just, the chanting opens up that space more deeply. it's funny because since the practice is simply to let go of whatever you're thinking about or experiencing or imagining or remembering, I'm not really focused on what is happening at that moment. I let go and come back to the name. And and as I move more deeply into that name, then the presence deepens. It's not like there's a him and me really at that point necessarily. Conceptually, I don't think of it that way. But when I complain to him, it's very much me and him.
It's like a bridge to the eternal in a way.
Sure. Because when I say a great being like that is the eternal. It's not two things. A great being like that has merged completely in the eternal, so to speak. And they say that there's no agenda or icha, desire, personal desire left in a being like that. Whatever happens is the divine coming through that portal, so to speak. They used to say about Maharaji that he had no awareness of his body. Like he never said like, I'll walk over here. It was just walking happened, he was, you can't really talk about it. There's just words, because words don't describe it. Words are dualistic, and these are places words just don't go. They don't reach that far. But
ineffable. Yeah. I've known. That.
Yeah, you mentioned peyote. Peyote was really the first experience I had, with any kind of a different consciousness. I never smoked grass or anything before that. It was between my junior and senior years of high school. Totally changed my senior year.
That's very parallel with my experience. Well, not totally, but high school times. But for me, I tried to keep going back there through that, and I think that's been discussed with you and some of what Ram Dass's teachings have been too, that like it's or even like what I've read about Maharaji speaking, like it can be useful for beginners essentially, but that
he said, he called it the yogi medicine. He said the yogi medicine is good for beginners. It can bring you into the room with Christ.
Right. Yeah.
But you can't stay.
I can attest to that.
If you want to stay, the only way to stay is love.
Yeah.
So.
Wow.
And another point, he said, yogis have known about this kind of thing for thousands of years. He used to grow up in the mountains, up in that place there. A yogi would go. He would let himself get quiet. His mind, body would quiet, this and that. His breath would get quiet. Then he'd bring the mind to one point, and then he would take the medicine and go through the door. So,
right.
And Ram Dass went to India with the LSD in order to try to find out what it was. He knew it had changed his life, but he didn't know what it was. What is this? Somebody must know. So he went to India and he started giving it to people. And, some people liked it, some people didn't like it. So then when he first met Maharaji, the day after his heart had been exploded and opened, and Maharaji looked at him and said, "You have medicine? Give me medicine." So he took out some aspirin. He didn't know what he said, nay, the yogi medicine. So Ram Dass said, "Wow, he must be in the acid." So he takes like the acid he had 4 hits, and 3 or 4 hits of Owsley acid. Maharaji took it, threw it in his mouth, and they sat around all day. He took enough acid to put a horse on the moon, and nothing happened. And this was a big thing for Ram Dass. You want to hear a funny story, though? So Ram Dass came back to America, and he started to talk about Maharaji. Of course, Maharaji had said to him, "Don't talk about me." So all he did was talk about him, but he never said his name or where he was, so you couldn't actually go and get him and find him. So there were people who said to Ram Dass, "Oh, come on, he just threw it over his shoulder. He scammed you. You know, you're so naive." So Ram Dass didn't really think so, but you know, there was this much doubt, tiny little bit of doubt. So then I went to India with a couple other guys, and and then Ram Dass came later for his second trip. And at one point we were together, we were traveling, and we met Maharaji in one of his temples in Vrindavan. And we're sitting there with Maharaji, and he looks at Ram Dass and he said, "When you were in India last time, did you give me medicine?" Ram Dass, "Yes." "Did I take it?" "Yes, I think so." "Huh. You got any more?" "Yes." "Give it to me." So Ram Dass takes it, puts the acid like this. Maharaji went like this, one pill at a time.
Oh my goodness.
4 times.
Wow.
I was sitting right next to Ram Dass. So,
wow.
And then after a couple of minutes, he takes his blanket over his head, covers himself up, and then he opens up and he goes, like this, you know. Ram Dass turned purple. And later on, he said, "I thought I had killed my guru." He tried to prove to me he could take it. He didn't take it the first time, but he was going to try to prove. Now I've killed my guru. The minute he thought that, Maharaji stopped the show, and he just said, "That's what I said before. Yogis have known about this for thousands of years." He said, "For a real yogi, no poison can affect him." Interesting, huh?
Yeah, it's amazing.
And these stories are things that seem to just, like, there's no prompting. Nobody's like prompting. It just comes through him in almost like a psychic way, like that he knows.
You know everything, man.
Yeah, I mean,
he knew what you ate for dinner. He knew how many times you chewed it. He knew he knew what the first thing you said when you were born was. He knew who you were in your past life. He knows who you're going to be next time. There's nothing that was hidden from him. And he loves us.
Regardless.
How is that possible? When somebody knows everything about you, there's no way. Okay.
Right.
And all there was love. All there was, because he sees our soul. He knows our soul. He sees why we're so hard on ourselves, why we can't allow ourselves to love and be loved. He can see everything, and he doesn't identify us with that at all. He knows who we are. And more than that, a great being like that can create circumstances in your life that will free you over time from the prison of the thoughts and emotions. He's not a teacher. He didn't give lectures. He didn't write books. He's a siddha. He changes things. He changes your life. He moves things around. So, okay, movie over there, like that. Because he loves you more than you could ever love yourself. That's the point.
Yes, right.
So there's a lot of, what we were talking about, the past essentially, and form and bodies. And one thing that came up for me, and I know that you have some experience too as a father, and from my understanding that he was a father as well. Like, how did that play out as far as like children, like mystic versus father and the role of all that? Like, do you have anything to share, or even in your life if it's not?
You mean for him?
Yeah, for him or for you, like how operating in this mystical way, essentially, but also, having children.
Well, as far as he's concerned, he was, his mother died when he was young, and his father remarried, and his wife had a boy, And then once her child was born, she stopped feeding Maharaji. She was very hard on him. He was still also very young. And he had been betrothed, engaged at 8 years old to a village girl. They don't live together until much later, but they're promised to each other. And but life became unbearable for him at home, apparently. So he left at a very young age and went to the jungle. And he was found by his father. A friend of his father saw him somewhere and told his father. Father brought him home again, and he remarried the girl. You know, for a woman in India, if you're widowed or divorced, there's not really divorce in those traditionally like that. But if you're it's very bad. You have to live. Your parents won't take you back. You have to live in your husband's or ex-husband's house, and you're like a slave. It's the worst situation for a woman.
Wow.
One of the worst situations. So he came back and he agreed to marry, and he kept coming and going. And then at a certain point, he stayed home for many years. His father had been a fairly well-off farmer, a landowner, and Maharaji inherited the land. And I had lunch with his daughter a few years ago, and he said he was the perfect father. He would walk with me to school carrying an umbrella to shield me from the sun. And I always remember him being there. And he left home again when she went off to go to school in her maybe around 16. So for many years he was around home mostly. And they say that sadhus and people would come to the door. He like stayed in the house most of the time, they say. And people would come to the door and ask to talk to him. How they knew he was there, nobody seemed to understand. I mean, sadhus and yogis would come and, want to meet him, want to talk to him. And there was no advertising going on. There was no internet. There was nothing. But, so it was, he was able to, people knew only what he allowed them to know. And they were aware of what he allowed them to be aware of. So many miracles would happen, but nobody would focus on it because he didn't want them to. You have to understand the level of being we're talking about here. It's something you don't read about saints like this. You don't hear about them. You hear about it. So his wife, who we call Mama Nimkuroli, she was always ragging on him because their son, they had 2 sons and a daughter. Their oldest son had like 6 daughters and no sons. And nobody to inherit officially the way India works, the property. So she would say, he's no Baba, not until we have a grandson, So they never did. But, yeah, so much.
Yes.
Yeah.
It's interesting. We have, or at least Eric and I have a background of A Course in Miracles, and things that you're saying just correlate completely. Like it's the same, you can feel it's the same content, where it says something like miracles aren't to be used as spectacles. Like you're not supposed to focus on miracles.
Sure.
Yeah. So.
Yeah, those around a saint like Maharaji, they just happen. There's not necessarily. Ramana Maharshi used to say that a jnani or an enlightened being has no agenda of their own, but many things happen around them due to the presence of all these powers and all these abilities that surround an enlightened being. The enlightened being themselves doesn't have to think, okay, let's do that. It just happens.
Exactly. Yeah. It's amazing.
So do you feel like you're there or approaching there in this lifetime? Can one approach there in this lifetime?
I can probably get closer to the screen if I move forward. I'm getting there. I'm getting there. Oh, no, computer. I'm sorry. Are you kidding me?
That's the best dance.
Singularity.
Yeah,
I don't know. Are we allowed to curse on this?
I think so.
Yeah.
I have absolutely no fucking idea what you're talking about.
Good answer. Oh my god. I love it.
I'm just trying to get through the day without murdering myself or somebody else. I don't know what to do.
Oh, I love it.
Well, aside from you, like, would you say that it's like where do you feel like is it possible for one to get there in one's lifetime? And maybe you can use music as a backdrop for that too, like and music as a medicine, perhaps. Maybe we could tie there. I don't know.
It's totally possible and totally, absolutely realistic to understand that enlightenment liberation is possible at any moment for anyone, because everybody has that within them. Our true nature is that. Our soul, so to speak, is that. But
Yes.
for most of us to overcome the karmic imperatives that we bring into this life, the desires, the stories we tell ourselves about ourselves, all the stuff we've inherited physically and DNA wise from our families, it's very hard to believe that most of us will ever get so free of propulsion, into the sense worlds and the mind and the thoughts, that we will actually become enlightened in this particular life. But I've met beings who I consider to be enlightened, but not so many Westerners that I know of. But certainly some of the, and even so, they don't even talk about it that way. They don't, because ultimately what they say is that until all beings are free, no one is free, because there's only one being and we're all part of that being. So what are we talking about? Is your thumb going to be enlightened if your toe is instead standing in shit? No, because it's one thing. So the whole concept of enlightenment changed a lot for me over the years.
Yeah. Yeah.
I remember sitting with Maharaji one day, and I almost burst out laughing, because I saw, I had gone, before coming to sit with him, I had put on some fresh clothes, and, I saw that my idea of enlightenment, of being enlightened, would be some place that I wouldn't be. I'd be gone. Right? And I laughed, because I recognized that it's exactly the opposite. There is no place where you will not be, no time when you will not be here. There is nowhere to go. There is no other place, nothing.
Right.
It's not something else that's going to happen. It's becoming who you are right now, recognizing what that is. And it's totally here, 24/7, 365, life after life after life after life. So that was an interesting moment.
Yeah.
I just want to shout hallelujah or something, because I totally agree.
Yeah.
Have you so she mentioned Course in Miracles. Are you familiar with that at all?
Not at all. I think it's a big book, right?
Yeah.
It's a thick book.
The biggest book I have is the Ramayana, and it's too big to read, so I don't even carry it around.
There's a lot of parallels, and for me, like I was raised Catholic, and then explored Eastern philosophy and thoughts through high school, and part of that was a course similar to yours, as far as like the methods and seeing like that this world is not as it seems, that there's more to this world than what seems, and then but for me, this book like ties it all together. Like, it has the Eastern deeper metaphysical oneness of it all, but uses the Christian terminology to bundle it all together.
Here's a book for you to read.
What does it say? Seraphim? Saint Seraphim of
Saint Seraphim of Sarov.
Oh, that looks wonderful.
Unbelievable.
Yeah. I'm gonna write
He was a Russian Orthodox monk in the 1800s.
Mm.
You will not believe this book. I mean, your jaw is going to hang down. It's like, you cannot believe it. It's amazing. Just
Oh, wow.
there's so many great beings out there that we don't know anything about, you know.
Yeah.
I'm sorry to, but yeah, sure.
Mm.
Maharaji was, I told you, when I was going to commit suicide in the temple, I was going to kill myself. I was so depressed. He looked at me and said, "What are you going to do? Jump in the river?" He wasn't taking this very seriously.
Making light of you. Yeah.
He said, "You can't die. Worldly people don't die. Only Jesus died the real death." Why? Why? He never thought of himself. There was no me left. The real death is the death of the illusion of separateness, the ego. And, you know, so, and all you do is think of yourself. What do you think? You know, you're not gonna, you can't kill yourself.
Wow.
Very interesting, you know, that way. And he loved Jesus. When he talked about Jesus, I can't really, he was, you know, he used to say Hanuman, Krishna, and Christ are the same. But when he talked about Jesus, it was like, I don't even know how to describe it. It was just like all of a sudden it was this intense atmosphere, just got tenser and tenser.
Wow.
It was really something. He told this one guy to meditate like Christ. And so later on, we were in the back with him, and Ram Dass said, "Baba, you said meditate like Christ. How did he meditate?" So, you know, he was about to say something, and then he just stopped. And he just sat there. And these 2 tears came down his cheek. Kind of shook himself, and he said, he lost himself in love. He lost himself in love. He's one with all beings. He never died. No one understands. He lost himself in love. And
wow.
We felt it. We felt it.
It's the truth. I mean, it seems like, yeah, like the truth, when you hear the truth,
yeah,
it jumps out. It's, I don't know, for me, yeah, it just all lines up in many ways. And then there's the parallels that reinforce oneness, you know, and
and, you know, his teaching to us was, you know, love everyone, serve everyone, remember God. Love everyone, feed everyone, serve everyone, remember God. And really, what did Jesus teach, you know? Love everyone, serve everyone.
Yes. Yes. Love everyone as yourself.
Yeah.
So some of the joining in these beliefs, in these practices, that there's a lot of potential for, or we see that some, you know, like some of the, like, for example, you know, the Amazing Grace, you know, you go into Amazing Grace at times, and I know that even just, you know, with the just words in English and things in your music, you know, that is, you know, there's space there for like a joining of ideas in a way. Do you see that? How do you feel like as far as that? Like, I know that when you're chanting, like the words are there, right? The words, the name of God, right? Where you're chanting the name of God, and many, it shows up in different symbols or forms, but it's really back to that ultimate oneness. And that's also there. It seems to be there based on history and based on the writings that are there. How does that translate to the music that's coming through you, or that you're creating, and the English words and the connections there? Like, can you share about that? And
are you talking about singing in English specifically, or
yeah, singing in English, writing in English, compared to like how the songs come together that, you know, are more traditional, quote unquote?
English is hard for me to write, to sing, to share English conceptual thinking in chanting and songs is hard for me because because I'm a person who's very depressed. You know, been depressed a long part of my life. It's like moping around is my go-to state. You know. So what I have to say in English is not that interesting. And I don't like to make up things either. But sometimes things come through, like that song, the chant I did, By Your Grace.
Yeah.
I actually woke up in the middle of the night, went over to the harmonium, sang the whole thing, went back to sleep. And when I woke up sometime later that day, I went, wait a minute, what, did that happen? And I went over to the recorder. I had recorded it, and the whole song was there. So that was nice. I don't know. I find it hard to, for me, I find it hard to find English words that transmit, or ideas in English that transmit presence in that way. The simplicity of and spaciousness of that loving awareness. And when it comes to English, you know, I'm a complainer, so I don't need to share that with everybody. All more complaining. There's a saint who wrote the Ramcharitamanas, the Tulsidas Ramayan, and he wrote like volumes of complaining to God. You know, what is the deal here? You know.
I love it.
So,
that's great.
And you know,
Gotta get it out.
You know, every once in a while something nice comes through, but for me, it's always unplanned. It's all unplanned, really. I mean, I don't sit down to write a chant or make a chant happen. I'll just be playing something. I might play a wrong chord in a song, and I'll go, "Oh, that's nice," and then oh yeah, and then it comes. If I had to plan this, I would have gone over a cliff a long time ago. So, and then there's the basic difference. You see, these mantras of the divine name are beyond conceptuality. They come from a place deeper than the conceptual mind and the emotions. So it's through the invocation of that and repetition of those sounds that one moves oneself into that place that's beyond identifying with an ego or any kind of conceptual stuff. So it's not impossible. I mean, there are great poets that can invoke that place in English or in Western language. Like Rilke there were many poems that he wrote that were just like so astounding. Your mind just stops and it just goes, oh, you know, and things like that. I'm not a researcher of this stuff, so I only know what like comes, you know, across the consciousness. But there are people like that who really have a way of invoking. There's a guy in Australia that I actually did. He's a poet, and so we did I sang on one of his CDs, and he was doing poetry, and then I was singing some stuff with him. It was very nice. So
beautiful collaboration.
Yeah, it's not so easy. I mean, I wish I could do more things in English, but they don't come through. Terry MacArthur is his name, the Australian guy. He's fantastic. So,
this is somewhat unrelated, but I just keep thinking of this question about just if you had some experience with it too, of addiction and how prevalent obviously that is for people, and you had a powerful experience with that. obviously.
I almost bit the bullet on that one. Yeah.
Mm.
Yeah, I was strung out on freebase cocaine for more than a year and a half. This is all after, all the bad stuff was after seeing Maharaji. I didn't have the balls to do it before, but after I met him, then I could really screw myself up. Yeah, I had, I did that for a while, yeah.
Mm.
And I was saved. I mean, people speak to me, they want to know how to deal with addiction. And the truth is, I don't really know. My Indian father, Mr. Tiwari, who was like my greatest teacher after Maharaji, and I was part of their family, and he was a great yogi, and one of Maharaji's oldest devotees. He came to America, and he looked at me and he said, "Promise me now you will give up cocaine. Promise me now." And I just said, "Okay." And that was it. Finished, done, over.
Amazing. Wow.
Over. It was Maharaji's grace and Tiwari's grace and blessings that just took it away. I'm a guy, I would never survive the struggle to give up that addictive stuff because my mother was an alcoholic. My father wasn't addicted in any way, but he had a certain kind of makeup. There was no way I was going to be able to deal with that. I would be fighting with it all lifelong, with the guilt and the shame, and then going back, and then it would have been horrendous for me. And I would not have been able to sing or do anything like this. So they just changed the program. I don't know what to say. So
yeah,
I don't, people ask me often, I know you had, and I try to, give some reasonable sounding advice. But the truth is, I don't know. I didn't do it. It was done for me, for whatever reason.
And that maybe that is the answer then, just again, back to surrender.
Yeah, but it's not so easy.
No, that's right.
Any way you look at it, it's addiction is I can't remember what I was listening to or read or something, that addiction, it actually, it temporarily at least breaks the connection with your soul. It moves you into darkness, and it really, I don't know if that's actually true literally, but it moves you into a place where you've lost your will to survive, and your will becomes focused only on feeding that hunger,
right?
And there's nothing else going on there. So
that's it.
It's like being lost in the ego in a way. It's like kind of an addiction to the ego that just manifests itself in different ways. It seems, and
yeah. Well, ego is not all bad. I mean, it's not that it's a bad thing. It's just not real. You still need to be able to get the things you need in life: food, shelter, etc., etc., and live in a good way and try to become a good human being. It's really about developing a sattvic ego, which is ultimately much easier to dissolve into the divine. By sattvic, I mean an ego that's even dedicated to helping others and becoming a good human being, kind and compassionate. Those are qualities that, when cultivates, those qualities connect to a deeper reality, but still on this plane, it's developing those good habits, the habits of love and connection and kindness and compassion that keep us moving in the right direction.
Right.
You can't just, Ramana Maharshi used to say, asking the mind to kill the mind is like asking the thief to be the policeman. There'll be a lot of investigation, but no arrest will ever be made. So it's not easy to just kill that. You can't kill it. First of all, ultimately, it's not real. So what you do is you develop these qualities. You do practice, and you plant the seeds of this deeper reality within yourself, and you cultivate qualities of caring for others and not thinking about yourself so much. It's not easy to do. I mean, addiction, all you're doing is thinking about yourself, like all the time.
Yeah. Yeah.
So it's a big problem for people, for sure.
Yeah. So, probably why I brought it up.
Do you think that it can go, that people can take it really far, like as far as like like an addiction to people pleasing or something like this, like where it's like I want to serve others so much that I will sacrifice
Yeah.
where I will hide everything, my own needs. Like I won't even look at my own needs because it's all about everybody else.
Well, that's a position that's recognized as being really self-destructive, and that's just because you get pleasure, a kind of pleasure and a pride taking care of others, and without really feeding yourself. You have to feed yourself. Buddha said, in the whole universe, you'll never find a being more worthy of love and affection than yourself. But and a lot of people get in. There's two extremes that Westerners go to. Everybody, but Westerners especially, of this kind of what you just described. You know, imagining that you're serving others and thinking only of others when really, you're getting off on it. And the other one is, there are no others. There's only emptiness. It's all reality and this and that. And you feel no compassion or kindness for anybody, including yourself. Both of those extremes are not accurate, not really the way to go. They're both aspects of self-hatred, really. And if we don't learn how to care for ourselves and free ourselves from the negative programming and negative stories that we tell ourselves all life long, how can we really care about anybody else? Really, it's just not possible. Because who else is out there in the first place? That we're only seeing our own projections. So if we're projecting, if all our actions are based, and with that experience I had, that revelation I had, or epiphany, when I recognized that my idea of liberation was someplace I wouldn't be, that was based on self-hatred, right? Because I don't love me, so how could I ever imagine I would be allowed to be happy, so to speak? Right? So it's so simple, do some practice to calm the mind, think about other people, and work on your stuff, and just get through the day. It's really, it's very simple. Not easy, but simple.
Yeah.
I think you speak to it a lot, and like you have to get through the blocks first in a way. Like there's all the blocks. You have to, like the dark night of the soul type, and that's what you're approaching through chanting. Like that's that avenue essentially.
Yeah.
Find it in other ways as well. Like, do you find, or is that like the main other useful practices or ways that we can look at the darkness together in a way that is safe and that we can release it essentially, as opposed to fixing it or something like this, like.
Yeah, everybody kind of works in a different way, I'm kind of somebody that if I understand something, if I understand some behavioral thing in myself, if I recognize it, that helps me release it. And some people don't have that attitude, and they can release in other ways. So it's really, everybody is already their own path. So it's just a question of getting down to it and becoming, recognizing what's required of you in life. Anything that helps is good. and only you know. Who knows except you? So get out there and, do it. If it doesn't work, try something else. Then try something else. Then try something else. And try something else. I mean, when I started chanting, nobody was doing that. The way I was doing, the way I was going to do it. I had nobody to ask, how do you do this? So I just sang what I liked. That's what I still do. The fact that anybody else gets off on it, well, that's great, But that's not why I was doing it. And there was no book written about how to do it. So I had to listen to my own heart and just keep fine tuning the process as time goes on.
Wow.
And in that was the connection too. Like you weren't just singing to yourself at your house in your bedroom or something like this. You opened up to joining in that connection, that collaboration. It's like a collaboration, it feels, with the listening.
Yeah, very much. But you understand that was not my idea. I had this epiphany that if I did not sing with people, I wouldn't be able to clean my own heart out. I wouldn't clean the shadows in my own heart.
Yeah.
I didn't have an option. It wasn't sing alone, which I wasn't doing anyway. I wasn't doing anything at that point. I was completely.
And with feels like a key word as well. Like you're not singing like with people as opposed to singing to people. Like that.
Yeah. I'm not singing to people at all. My instructions have always been to sing to God, sing to the siddhas on the hill, sing to the sing to that sing to your heart. I'm not trying to do anything for anybody or to anybody. I'm sharing what I do for myself with people.
Right.
And it's only really fairly recently that I'm more able to sing alone at home in a good way by myself. And it's interesting, the pandemic has kind of in some way deepened that, because I'm here alone with my drum machine and the harmonium, and I don't hear the people singing back. I sing every Thursday, and sometimes there are thousands of people responding in their living rooms, but I don't hear it. So I'm singing alone, essentially, in another way. So, of course, vibrationally and on another level, we must be hooked up, but it doesn't necessarily feel like that. So it's interesting. It's a slightly different experience that way. But it's good. Been good.
Wonderful.
Forced me to, to even go deeper, to pay more attention in a way.
Yeah. It's like the transcending space in a way. Like if you're there in the same room with everybody, you don't have as much opportunity to realize that deeper eternal connection, I suppose.
I don't agree with you. I think it's more of a question of history. How historically have we spent all our alone time, right? Mostly we watch TV, we read a book, we play games. We're not. That's like when the clutch goes in, you're alone. You just kind of. It's almost like for me, it's my lowest common denominator. It's when I'm alone. Fuck it. I'm just going to be, I'm just going to watch TV. I'm going to binge watch 3 seasons of this.
Right.
So it's like overcoming those kind of tendencies. It's a different type of work, But I find that because when I'm singing with people, I'm aware of them, but my eyes, I can't even open my eyes. I totally, it's like, it's in space. So whether they're there or not physically, it's interesting. So, everything's available all the time. It's just a question of whether you're paying attention and what your commitment is to, what your sincerity, how sincere you are in the practice. If I'm really sincere, then I'm not singing to people. I'm not trying to get them off. I'm not trying to do anything for them or to them, other than include them in this practice that I do. If I had an agenda like that, you would feel it. It would be entertainment, and that would constrict your heart. If my heart is constricted, I think I'm doing something to you, or trying to get you to have some experience, or trying to help you even. You know, your gut would know, and there would be a manipulation, and you would not feel free to relax.
Yeah.
So
That's it. That's very powerful. Yeah. The motives, it's like, what is it for? What's the purpose? Yes.
yeah.
So yeah, it's a really good point. Oh, yeah.
Did you want to say anything more about the Course in Miracles? You asked me about that. I don't know. I think I interrupted you or went on some other tangent.
Oh yeah.
I think we were just curious if you're familiar with it at all, because there's so much parallel, and that's just kind of where our groups come together, like through that teaching in a way, you know. And for us, it's really about following guidance, right? It's about saying, you know, I don't know anything really, like show me what to do, you know, kind of like how you were saying about like with Maharaji, and like, you know, just if I'm going to sing, like show me, you know, make this happen. And it's kind of, it's like giving it all the spirit, you know, and being in a like in a receiving mode that way, with the intentions of just being shown that, like, where are the blocks to love's presence, you know, like where like show me, like that's my prayer of the heart most of the time. Like if we're going to a retreat or something like that, you know, we're talking about prayers of the heart, it's just show me, spirit, help me release the blocks to love's presence, you know, and things will come up, and that's where authenticity is just so huge right now for me, you know, and not bearing it, not, you know, looking at things, you know, and coming together. And it seems to be helpful in form with like-minded people in a way. I mean, but it also is like, well, that's being given, so, you know, that's what's helpful for me too, you know, like, and a lot of it has to do with collaborations, you know, and I think that it seems that you experience that a lot as well, like through, you know, there's the collaboration between everybody that's there with the kirtan experience, but, you know, you also have collaborations like musically with different artists and all kinds of different projects, I'm sure, you know, and in these collaborations, for me, is a way that it just shows that just the illusion of separateness, right? Like we're coming together for a common purpose, which is to realize the love's presence, essentially, you know.
Yeah.
So it speaks way to that in like the metaphysical way the Course does, you know, like it brings in like the metaphysics, and I mean, for me, one of the easiest ways to look at that and approach that is that it's just considering time and the eternal, you know, and like that in eternity, it's not possible. I mean, you talk about that, like ultimate reality and the difference between the relative world and ultimate reality, and ways to approach that in a way, and also I think it was on yesterday's Hanging in the Heart that you were talking about that a little bit.
Yeah, somebody that's the question.
Yeah, that, you know, what you were speaking to, the Course speaks to all that stuff as well, and you were talking directly about like what would be called level confusion in the Course community. Like it's just, you know, what reality are we talking about here? And yeah, I don't know, there's just a lot of parallels.
My prayer is basically just do it and don't even ask me. Goodbye.
Goodbye. I like that. I'm hanging up.
Next, you know. I don't want to know anything. I don't want to be shown anything. Just take care of this. Finish it, would you please? I'm out of here.
I love that. Yeah. 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 Well, and I really appreciate how accessible your website is, and how I can write in a letter straight to you to ask, you know, even for this interview. It was really, that's a big deal. Like a lot of websites, you don't even have that option.
Yeah.
So, yeah, it really was a big deal to be able to be so accessible. means a lot to us. I
Yeah.
know.
Yeah. You know, Maharaji, wherever he went, thousands of people. It became a city. You know, wherever he went there. He sat in a field, you know, everywhere, anywhere. But there was no internet. There were no phones. There were telegrams. That was about it, you know.
God.
And he always forbid people to talk about him and write about him. In his lifetime, he never let anybody. So, and he didn't need you to be there. You know, he didn't. He wasn't confined in that physical body. He didn't need you to be there to do what he had to do for you. So,
right. Yeah.
You know.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's such a good point. It's like you're not responsible. I've been looking at that too, like those thoughts, feeling responsible somehow. You're not. What are you responsible for? You're not responsible for somebody else, or even for yourself. You're handing it over and saying, "Okay, you handle it."
Yeah. Surrender. Real surrender happens by grace.
Yeah.
You know, we can aspire to that, but like I said, the ego will never let go. It has to be let go of by grace. There's so many subtle ways that we're always in there controlling, evaluating, manipulating, enjoying, hate, you know, all the things. Is surrender. It's a ripening process. That's the way I see it, you know.
Mm-hmm.
And at some point when you ripen up, boom, the fruit falls.
Mm-hmm.
But, and, you know, so you can't, it's not for us to surrender. We can't do that. We can offer, we can,
right.
You know, we can, and I remember what I was going to say. You've been talking about it. So therapy, counseling, all these things I find can be very useful for all of us.
Mm-hmm.
But how do we get the strength to let go? Right? I mean, you can understand patterns, you can see things, therapists can help, counseling can help. But how do you actually get the strength to release that energy that's caught up in those programs or in those behaviors? That, to me, it seems that comes through spiritual practice only, and grace. And if you're doing spiritual practice, that is already grace manifesting in your life.
Yeah.
So all those things can be useful. Anything that someone feels is helping them, terrific. But if you really want to, one must train that letting go muscle. Just like any other muscle that you want to develop, it takes training. That's what the chanting practice is for me. It's the training that muscle, letting go, coming back, letting go, coming back. And there's another subtle little thing, but it's a subtle big thing. So there you are, Sri Ram, Jai Ram, Jai Jai Ram, Sri Ram. And then you start thinking about, oh, you know, wow, this is so great. There's so many people in the room. And oh, that girl in the third row is really hot. I like her, and this and that. Wow, man, we could get married. We could have a family. It's so great. And this and oh, Sri Ram, Jai Ram, Jai Jai Ram, right? So, but here's the thing. So there you are, living with this woman, having a family, having arguments, raising the kids, you know, working every day. And then all of a sudden, you woke up from that dream, right?
Mm-hmm.
How did that happen? How did you wake up?
Yeah.
This is the mystery. How did you wake up? Where did the dream go? Where did it vaporized? It disappeared. How did that happen?
Right.
So at that point, you then refocus on the mantra, on the name. But then you're gone again until you wake up. You're gone. You're not in control. You did not wake yourself up, nor can you. it just released, the fantasy or the dream ends and you're back. Oh, so that's how the practice of chanting, the practice of some meditation essentially, deepens this center of gravity. It deepens inside of us. There's this magnetism into our being drawn into our deeper self. And so that through practice, that gets stronger and stronger. And so that releases us from dreamland again and again, more quickly, one would say, possibly over time, more easily. And that's something that will function during the day, during your regular day. Things will happen. They won't grab you the same way, with the same intensity, same glue. So that's why I think it seems to be that's one of the things that spiritual practice does for us, is that it trains us to be able to let go of this stuff. We don't have to evaluate it. We don't have to understand it. We don't have to write it down. We don't have to, analyze it. Just let go and be back again, and again.
Wow.
So
That's beautiful. Thank you.
Yeah.
Maybe.
That's. I just want to share that I love that about you, that the humor part, right? Because I think that it's easy to get into this like serious, like in spirituality in general, it's like practice, devotion, serious stuff. But ultimately, it's about joy and as well, and
It is. It's about joy. It is, and because that's our true nature, actually. There's a beautiful story. Mark Epstein is a Buddhist psychiatrist. He's written a number of books, really nice books. And one of the books, I think the book's called Going on Being. Could be that's the one it is. He tells the story of Buddha in his quest for enlightenment, how he was sitting under this tree and he was starving himself to death and, breathing like 3 times a day. I mean, intense tapasya, really. And he was in terrible despair because he was doing the practices that were available to him in that day. He had perfected those practices. He had recognized and realized all the teachings that were available that day. And yet he knew that he didn't have it. It hadn't happened to him yet. And he didn't know what else to do, because he said, if I keep up like this a little longer, the body's going to die. It's going to drop. And that won't be good. And so he was in terrible despair. This is the short version of it. It's worth reading the whole thing. But so at some point in this very deep despair, a memory arose in him of a time when he was a boy, sitting under a tree, watching his father in the field. His father was a king, but he was in the field doing maybe a ceremonial plowing of this field in his kingdom, something like that. And while he had been sitting under that tree, he actually entered a very subtle state of consciousness from his previous karmas, and it was a joy. He experienced this joy, and there he is sitting under the tree now in despair, and he remembered that feeling of joy, and it scared him because he's doing this kind of step. And then he said, okay, wait a minute, what is this feeling, right? So he looked at that feeling and he recognized that it wasn't a pleasurable feeling because of the joining of the senses with a pleasurable object, or the separating of the senses with an unpleasurable object. So it had no cause, this feeling that he was experiencing. It wasn't an emotion. It wasn't a sensual thing. It had no cause. And if it had no cause, then it must be natural. And so then he said, maybe the way to enlightenment is through this feeling. Because there's no cause. It's a natural feeling of okayness, of wellness, of all rightness, that of the self. And then he said, maybe I should eat some, you know. And a woman comes by with some curd or something, and he puts his hand out, like sadhus do. And he ate a little bit. He had 5 disciples who were sitting there waiting for him to be enlightened so they could get a piece of it. When they saw him eat, they looked at each other and they said, oh, Gautama's left the path, let's split. And they left.
Wow.
And he got up and he walked further into the jungle and he sat down. And he went in through this essential feeling of okayness. It's a simplification a little bit, but essentially that's what it is. And ultimately he recognized freedom and liberation. So this is what it's all about, and this is what we've lost touch with. In our culture, nobody teaches you to be okay by yourself. You got to be busy getting things or throwing things away. You know, you're not okay just by yourself. Get busy, do something. You know, all that like that. So this is a really big thing, and so my belief, my understanding is that the names that we sing, the chanting, those are the names of that place that is okay. So invoking this place and through the name of that place, it moves us in that direction, into our true self, which has those qualities of bliss, truth, reality, you know, Sat Chit Ananda, that's what it is. So we'll see.
Yeah.